I like vanilla cola. No. Garten of Banban 2 recently released on Steam and has had probably more attention than even the first game had. Everyone who skipped out on the first game got around to playing this one, some because they wanted to see improvements, and some because they wanted to laugh at it even harder. And actually, I'd say both parties were probably very satisfied in that regard. Let's get one thing straight before I dive into the full game review. Is this game better than the first? I would say objectively yes. It's a longer game with more to do, more coherent story, and probably most importantly, significant improvements to the main gameplay mechanic, that being the drone. But aside from all of that, there's definitely nothing here I'd say is necessarily good. If it makes sense, Banban 1 is like getting stabbed in the gut, but Banban 2 is like getting stabbed in the gut, and then the stabber gives you 20 bucks. So let's get started with a brief synopsis of the gameplay, and then go over other elements of this game that make it much more interesting to talk about than Banban 1. So the game begins right after the ending of Banban 1, with your character descending down into the kindergarten. It seems that after Jumbo Josh ripped the elevator down, it crushed him, so he's a little dead right now. Also, your remote was heavily damaged and could no longer summon your drone. Making your way through, you find yourself in a structure called the Outer Sector. The Outer Sector is essentially the hub world of this chapter. You'll be using it to travel to the various areas in the underground facility. The first place to head to is comms, where a voice will tell you that he needs your help to get him out of the locked security room. These are where the first puzzles of the game are, but I'm not going to get into too much detail about those since they honestly aren't anything special. I'd like to say they're an improvement over the first game, but they aren't. Something you may notice about this game is just how much it loves being a puzzle game in comparison to the first. Granted, the first had like 2 puzzles, but this one throws a couple different varieties your way, and none of them are anything to write home about. The voice on the camera will open a door for you and allow you to get a new antenna for your remote. This allows you to summon a new drone, and this time you can actually customize it. Although this is purely cosmetic and doesn't actually affect the gameplay. Your new task is to retrieve a light blue security card, which is found in the maintenance halls. After retrieving the card at the end of this long maze, travel back through the maze while escaping this game's first real threat, Nab Nab. Nab Nab is a spider-like creature who crawls on the ceiling, so be careful of him as you move. He's also characterized as just being the weird one of the group, which I think is fucking hilarious. I should mention this, one thing I actually do kinda like unironically about this game is its sense of humor. Some of it is self-aware, and some of it is more in your face. However, being a horror game, its sense of humor should probably be one of the last things I compliment it for, so take that as you will. After retrieving the card you need, go to the security room and get knocked out, as it's revealed the person you were communicating with was actually Banban himself. Banban mentions that he's going to perform a surgery on you, and then you wake up in this sort of holding cell. After escaping, you'll find yourself in a new puzzle, where you have to get past this giant guy. In order to do this, you need to extract the blood from each of these dead Captain Fiddles guys. I'll explain why the blood is green later. After doing this, you unlock a rocket, which you can fire out of a cannon into the eye of the big guy, which causes him to retreat. Moving on, you go back to the Outer Sector where a giant worm is just chilling now. He can't hurt you, you can't hurt him, it's cool. Moving on to the testing facility, this is probably where the game gets the most interesting. At the end of this long hall, you can open a door where you're then chased by everyone's favorite Opila bird. However, you have assistance. Banbalina helps you escape and you lock the door, but now you're stuck to participate in her class. Using some of the tape recorders in front of you, progress through 3 lessons and make your escape. Upon escaping, you'll now find yourself in the legendary Baby Opila Bird Sanctuary. In order to clear this next part of the level the right way, you must bring all the baby Opilas to the end of the hall and put them in a rubber nest. Then, unlock this door and let Opila Bird be drawn to her babies in the nest. Escape through the door and into a new hall where Slow Celine will now chase you. Slow Celine probably has the most complex mechanic in the game, and that's basically in how she functions like a game of red light, green light. If she's staring straight ahead, don't move. However, if her eyes go all funky, make a run for it. This mechanic does not make a lot of sense to me though, especially with her dialogue. It almost makes it seem like her character was meant to be blind, but she clearly isn't. This brings us to the Stinger Flynn mission, where you collect shells and fire cannons, and hopefully not lose your sanity. Moving on through a relatively pointless room, you come across a platforming section that goes on for way too long for a game with absolutely no platforming otherwise. At the end of this puzzle, if you want to call it that, we come to the final section of the game, where Banban discourages us from going down into the depths, as even stronger monsters wait down there. Then Banbalina and Jumbo Josh chase you through a place with multiple dead ends. That's cool. and then she gets fucking squashed by his big Blummock fist. Descend the elevator, say goodbye to Slow Celine, game over. God damn it. What can I even say about Banban 2's gameplay? Well, there's definitely more of it than in Banban 1, it's also a much larger headache than Banban 1. As I understand it, most who had even an ironic enjoyment of the first game really dislike the second game because it just feels like it goes on forever. In my synopsis, I purposely omitted almost every puzzle, because each puzzle is basically the same thing ad nauseum. Use the drone to hit the button. Although there is some variety in how this is done when compared to the first game, it's still nothing special and blatantly inferior to even the most boring puzzles in a game like Poppy or Security Breach. Okay, I've been very negative so far. Is there anything positive I have to say about this game? Actually, yes. And it's probably not what you expect, but I actually kinda like the story. Okay, so the game itself is bad, but the story? It's underdeveloped so far, but it's actually kind of interesting. It seems that these living mascots are made out of clay infused with human DNA and a substance called Givanium. When mixing these two substances, they can bring inanimate objects to life, with the newly formed creature possessing the intelligence and memories of their human genome donors, and even viewing themselves as human. Both Banbaleena and Banban refer to themselves as human at different points, but it wasn't just humans that Givanium was used on. Opilabird is the result of mixing flamingo DNA with Givanium. I believe the rest have yet to be confirmed, but if it's consistent, then Stinger Flynn is probably a jellyfish. If I had to guess, a manivore or box jellyfish, because those are two very popular ones. No idea what Jumbo Josh is if his DNA isn't human, and Celine is probably a snail, go figure. It seems that these characters were created to eventually be presented to the public on some special day. It was on that day that everything terrible happened and everyone disappeared. We even have some idea of who you, the player character, is. In the first game, you could find a note addressed to a kid's mom explaining that he was trying to protect someone named Claire. Although this note was originally believed to be about the kid fighting Opilabird, knowing what we know now about Opilabird, it seems more likely that he was fighting alongside her. But then we see a similar note in this game, also addressed to this kid's mom. It really does seem like the player might be this child's mother, which is admittedly actually kinda cool. I of all people did not expect this kind of information to be given diegetically. Overall, this game does a much better job of telling the story it wants to tell, and it's not the worst story ever. But it's all told through notes and a couple videos you can find. Very little of it is actually revealed through gameplay, outside of Banban insisting that he's a human. His actual role in the game remains to be seen, but he's kinda playing both sides of the coin. He's ready to kill you if it gives him a better chance at survival, but he doesn't seem to want unnecessary bloodshed. In conclusion, regarding the story elements of this game, they're probably the best part, but even then, there's still only the foundations of a good story buried under the monotonous bullshit that is the gameplay. So I didn't know what to make the third part of this video, so here is just my random thoughts regarding the game, its future, and the developers, as my opinions on those guys have actually changed a little bit. So let's start with the game itself. What's my gut feeling about it? Well, it's honestly a huge missed opportunity. Like I said, there's a lot here that could be really good, but it's just sandwiched between these dumb drone puzzles. None of the chases are difficult save the last one, and that's only difficult because the game purposely leads you to dead ends, so you have to redo it multiple times. When I said that this would be the new worst indie horror game series, I can probably say I was right, but that doesn't mean I'm happy about it, especially with how the devs this time around actually kinda tried, at least more than they tried for the first game. If there would be any advice I could give the Euphoric brothers, it's to take their time with the next installment. Take their time, playtest it, iron out the kinks, and put in the work. I can really see something good actually emerging here, but it's so bogged down it's kind of ridiculous. Other thoughts I have? Maybe put more work into the art direction. Unlike the first game, this game does actually have some sense of a visual style. Sometimes. Things do fit together a lot better than the first game, but there's still some elements that stand out in a really negative way. For example, this hyper-realistic espresso machine. Why is that here on this Roblox-ass fold-out table? Speaking of tables, or objects in general, how about we look at any object in this game that is an original model? I'm sure you've seen the ML Spence tweets by now, but the models in this game are actually atrociously unrefined. For those who might look at these images and not see anything wrong, let me give you some examples of other 3D meshes, and why the ones you see in Banban are actually so bad. ML Spence in this tweet provided the 3D mesh of the Ink Demon from Bendy and the Dark Revival, and this mesh has far fewer polygons, which allows it to be rendered smoothly during gameplay without absolutely destroying your PC. This is Banban's, and the fact that there's so many polygons the model looks dark gray even though it's a transparent mesh should tell you a lot. Oddly enough, this isn't even just a Banban problem. FNaF Security Breach had a very similar problem, with all the character models being so incredibly high poly that it made it extremely difficult for hardware to actually run the game without visual glitches. But whereas Banban's polygonal problems can be chalked up to inexperience, Security Breaches comes from the wrong kind of experience. Steel Wool is famous for its staff being composed partially of former modelers and animators from Pixar. The reason these models were so high quality was because they were basically movie quality. With Banban though, it's so completely unnecessary. Look at this damn remote antenna. It's a cylinder. Why does it need this many polygons? All in all, I can safely say that I was completely right about Banban being the worst indie horror series going forward, but this time around, it's a lot less fun. Banban 1 was fun to make fun of because it was so clearly not a passion project, just a rip on what was popular at the time. But Banban 2 is a different kind of bad. Not so bad it's funny, so bad it's just disheartening. I genuinely hope the Euphoric brothers get their shit together for the third game. I know they're kind of sensitive when it comes to criticism or whatever, but they really ought to listen, because their worst critics are gonna be their best friends when it comes to making good games. My opinions, like I said, have changed regarding these guys. Maybe Banban is, on some level, an actual passion project to them, and if that is the case, then I only want what's best for them, because this simply isn't it. I think they're probably just misguided and immature, both of which can be rectified by putting in the effort. All I'll say is that I will genuinely be happy if I don't hear about Banban for at least another 6 months. Thank you all for watching. I'm DMuted. Be sure to like and subscribe. It's absolutely free and it helps me out more than you think. Peace.